Hi, Jeff Munn, Creating Extraordinary Futures. And I was hoping this would be a LinkedIn live stream, and the technology has not worked out that way. So, what you're watching right now is actually a pre recording. Hopefully, it's going to be glitch free. But I want to use this opportunity because it's not on live stream to say, um, if you're not in a place where you can be undistracted for the next hour, if you're not in a place where you can let some things wash over you, let some things happen for you that maybe have not been available for you before, I'd wait. This link will be available. You can go back. It may be streaming on LinkedIn right now, but you can go back and watch the recording later. I'd encourage you to do that. And if you are in a place where you can just settle in, let your mind wander a little bit, let some ideas occur for you that maybe haven't occurred for you, great. Let's go ahead. So I have a presentation that I'm going to go through, and just enjoy this. I mean, we're going to be on for a little under an hour probably. And if you have questions after the fact, reach out to me. You can put a comment on the LinkedIn post. You can direct message me on LinkedIn. You can send me an email at jeff@jmunn.com. Any of the number of ways that you have of getting in touch with me. And let's continue this conversation, because what I want to talk about today may be the most important thing that you're going to hear in terms of your own capacity to not only do more in life, but also to be more fulfilled by that doing. So, this next hour is really a conversation about possibility, about opening yourself up to the idea that you can be different. You can create yourself differently, and you can create differently in the world. And so my focus in having this conversation is, we miss this, but everything that you do in the world starts with who you are being in the world. And we tend to think of it the opposite. We tend to think, well, if we achieve this, if we get this job, if we move to this place, if we get this partner, then we're through that process, we're going to become a different person. And what I want to suggest to you is that you actually need to be a different person first. And that by recognizing that, and by being that, and by stepping into that, you can actually accelerate this process no matter what you want to do, whether that's showing up in the context of work, or in the context of a relationship, or how you show up as a parent. Any of that is driven by this notion of who you are, and what you see in this conversation determines everything. So again, make sure that you're watching this in a distraction-free environment, that you've, at least for now, set aside the to-do list, set down that email that you were responding to. Forget about all that for now. You can come back to it. It'll still be available. So what I have found in working with probably hundreds of people at this point, being part of groups of communities of thousands of people looking in this direction, is that the more you engage in this conversation, the more powerful it becomes for you, the more becomes available to see. When it's like anything, when you're looking for wildlife on the vista, and at first you glance and you don't see anything, and then as you let things sink in a little bit, you see a little movement here, a little movement here, and suddenly you see a landscape that's teeming with wildlife that wasn't available to you because you didn't know how to look. That's what this is about. And again, the more you're in an undistracted space, the better. So what would it be like to stop for a minute, to stop thinking about all the things that you should be doing, all of the desires that you have to look a particular way to other people, to meet their expectations, to meet your expectations to yourself, to provide for your family, to try to impress people, to try to get a promotion. Like, what if you set all that aside for a minute and made a commitment to you, to be in a conversation week after week around what's not only what's possible for you, but what do you really want? To see and release the limits that you've created for yourself. So these limits were created innocently. They were created in childhood. They were incredibly useful at the time. And for most people, at some point, they stopped being useful. And what if you were in that exploration with people just like you who were doing the same thing? So if that sounds appealing to you, later on in this presentation, I'm going to talk about my group, You Unleashed, that's going to explore that. And you have an inner knowing. You know almost immediately, almost without conscious thought, rational thought, yeah, I want to hear more about that. Or no, that doesn't resonate with me. And if it doesn't resonate with you, turn off the turn off the stream. Go back to the emails and the lists. But if you think there might be something in this for you, keep listening, because this is, for me, this exploration has been a lifelong journey, and it's never going to end. The more I look, the deeper I see. And I'm excited to share that with a group of you. So a little bit on who I am. If you've been following my work on LinkedIn, or if you know me, you know a little bit about this, but I'll just do a quick refresher. I am a recovering stressed out overachiever. I hope I'm recovering. I'm trying to recover. I spent the first 40 years of my life, maybe more, if I'm utterly honest with myself, doing what I thought I was supposed to do. Getting good grades in school, and then going off to college and graduating with highest honors from college, and then going off to law school and getting the good law firm job, and deciding whether or not I wanted to be partner, and then becoming a partner at a consulting firm, and just one after another. It was about, there's this carrot in front of me, this next thing, and I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to therefore, at some point, one of these carrots is going to work, and is going to make me happy, and is going to make me satisfied, and is going to make me fulfilled. And what happened was I just felt more miserable, more imprisoned, more frustrated, more convinced that I was missing something. And so my exploration into what really makes us happy, what really makes us satisfied, probably started in my mid-20s, turned into a meditation practice, turned into later, going to retreats, studying with spiritual teachers. And I did find that there was this truth out there that was obvious if you knew where to look, and that was incredibly powerful, and that how to get there was just this messy, really human up and down process. And so I spent the last 10 years or so, first as a blogger, and then as a coach and as a teacher, pointing people to this truth, and still trying to honor and recognize the messiness of the journey. I mean, that's part of the joy in this process, is that we actually get to be ourselves. I'm just as flawed and messy now as I was before. I'm just more willing. I'm more willing to let people see it. And then the other side of this is this recognition. And for me, I think it kind of hit me when I was about 30. Like, there's always going to be more to get outside, more, more, more. I can never be the smartest person. I can never be the most talented person. I can never be the richest person. Whatever superlative you wanted to put out there, there was always more. And so it hit me at that point, if there is a place to go where there is this idea of happiness and satisfaction and purpose and meaning, it's inside. And that, for a lot of people, for a lot of you listening, watching this stream right now, it's not an area that you've seriously considered. And I want you to kind of put your toe in the water and see what I have learned. What I have learned works, what I have learned doesn't work. And I'm happy to share that experience. And I can tell you that what I have seen in small glimpses and sometimes really big glimpses, I had an experience of this last July of 2021, where I suddenly realized I was not Jeff. Instead, there was this huge intelligence, presence that was looking through my eyes, and I suddenly became aware of this distinction between it and what I used to think of as me, and that it actually was me. And I was, what I thought of as me was kind of occurring within it, but was not it. And there's more in my writing that if you want to explore that, but just this sense that I am the universe and so are you. And what, with that as a palette, what do you want to create? So who are you? And I'm going to answer this question at two levels, because there's the conventional answer when I say, so tell me about you, tell me about your story. And you say, well, I have this job, I've been in it for this many years, or I've decided to start this venture, I'm a solopreneur, I'm starting a company. Those things that we call our identity. And what I'm pointing to and what I'm talking about is not that. What I'm talking to is the thing within you that is creating that identity. So you have this certain story about yourself, that you're talented in certain ways, that you have a personality, that you're an extrovert or an introvert, or you're warm or you're cold, or you're smart or you're stupid, or you're aggressive or you're submissive, all of those things. And you take them as solid. You take them as this thing you call a personality, this thing you call an identity. And the truth is that if we really looked, we could come up with many, many exceptions to that, that you're not always any of those things, that you're a verb, you're not a noun, you're a process. You're not anything solid and unchanging. You're constantly changing. And that, you're the thing that is changing and then telling a story about the changing. And you're believing the story rather than noticing what's actually happening behind the scenes. So this vastness that's looking through your eyes, and there's a whole website I would point you to called headless.org, that there are these real life experiments that you can do that point to this fact that whatever it is that is looking through your eyes, and I have the same struggle. I can't explain it. I can't put any conditions on it other than it seems to be open and vast and unlimited, and it does not have a personality. It does not live or die. It does not, it doesn't have any of these things. And so this thing you call an identity is something that you can either just step free of, or you can dismantle it and reassemble it however you like. So in the most critical ways, you are just a habit. So whatever you call you, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of protection. We develop these habits in childhood, these rules that we figured out worked or didn't work. And we then took them on as real. We took them on as this is the way I am and this is the way the world is. And neither one of them is true. And when you see this, when you open up to this possibility, it changes everything. And so you unleashed is a steady pointer to who you really are and who you already are. There isn't anything you have to do to get there. This isn't a self-improvement project. This is a self-discovery project at the most fundamental level. At the most fundamental level, this is a realization, and it doesn't happen instantaneously. It does require some looking and some letting go, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of barriers that we have put up, psychological patterns to prevent us from seeing this. But it's this steady reminder of what it's possible to create, which is anything. And so what I'm asking you to see is that you're already complete. You're already whole. You could not be more perfect. You have perfectly evolved according to your situation and your circumstances and the stories that it made sense for you to create about yourself at the time. And now you can let them go and create something else. And knowing that you are complete, knowing that you are whole, what will you create then? Just because it's a fun part of the human experience to create. So a lot of the reasons we don't see this, a lot of the reasons we don't do this, are that we're afraid. And we're so caught up in our fear that we don't even label it fear. So some of those things that we call fear, like cold feet before a wedding, or before, the day that you announce your departure at work. That people get that that's fear. And most of the time you get through it, right? You kind of talk yourself out of it. You talk yourself down. It's like, wait, I've gone through this. These are the reasons I'm doing it. This is the reason it feels right to me. This is the reason, my partner feels like the right partner, or this new job feels like the new job. And it's normal to be afraid, and I'm going to do it anyway. But then there are other things that we don't think of as fear, like being practical, being reasonable. These are the machinations of our intellect, and our intellect is constructing models of the world constantly. We're oblivious to it, but you can try this. It will create reasons to stay the same, because to your intellect, to your brain, staying the same feels safe. Changing feels dangerous. So your brain actively resists changing. So when you look at, this is true for people. This is even true for companies. You look at, there's a famous story about Kodak. Kodak invented the technology for the digital camera, but they convinced themselves that the technology would never evolve to the point where it was useful, and that film was always going to be better, and therefore they didn't need to do anything. And 20 years later, give or take, Kodak was bankrupt, because the technology did take over, and they had a chance to disrupt themselves and chose not to do it. You have a chance to disrupt yourself. And the question is, are you going to do it, or are you going to face an obsolescence for your skill set, for your approach, even for your career at some point? And what will you have done? What will you have done along the way to convince yourself that it was okay, that it was safe, that it was safer not to change? So that idea of, not changing because it feels safer, that idea of having a fallback plan. Everyone I ever met who had a fallback plan used the fallback plan. The people who truly took the leap of faith, and I count myself as one of those. When I moved from Washington D.C., having had a corporate career, laid off from the corporate career, I had a choice. Was I going to do this coaching on the side as a side gig while I looked for something, that was more in my wheelhouse in terms of my subject matter expertise? That was my first impulse. And then eventually I came around to, no, I'm not only going to do this coaching full time, but I'm going to move across the country to a town of 6,000 people where there are no Fortune 500 companies and there are no jobs like the job that I was just in. And I'm going to make it work. And I knew that I was doing it. And I ignored the fear, and I did it because there just was this sense of knowing. And it was scary, and it took longer than I thought it was going to take. And now I have succeeded. I have fully embraced and embodied this new story, this new identity of myself as an executive coach working with very senior executives. And I don't even think about going back. It doesn't even occur to me as a possibility. And so that leap, I'm not saying it's always going to work out. I have no idea if it's going to work out. That's the exciting part about it. But from what I can tell, it has a lot higher chance of working out if you are willing to fully commit and jump into the unknown. And so most of the time, what we do instead of that is we create these disastrous futures. I'm really good at doing this. I still do this at like 4 a.m. I'll wake up and I'll think about, well, what if this client doesn't renew, or what if this proposal doesn't go through, or what if the economy turns, or what if everyone decides they don't need coaching anymore, and blah, 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 blah. And suddenly, I'm out on the streets and my wife has left me and I made it all up. So I made stuff up and got scared of it. And that's what most of us call fear, is actually making stuff up and getting scared of it. Catastrophizing, if you want a fancy word for it. But real fear, if you've ever been in a situation that was actually dangerous, I remember one time, I was in my 20s. I was driving my car down the road. It was snowing. It was a little unclear how icy the roads were. You couldn't quite see. I drove across a bridge. I started fishtailing, and while I was, my body was activated. I was automatically doing the things that I needed to do. I wasn't really conscious of it. I kind of went unconscious, and that's what happens in real fear. Time slows down and we know what to do. This other stuff, this stuff that we call anxiety, that we somehow think is useful, it isn't fear, and it isn't most of the time, maybe ever, actually useful. So I mentioned being in a situation with real danger and my thinking, the experience of my thinking actually slowing down, the experience of what we'll call, I saw this on a movie about extreme athletes, part of the Jimmy Chin series. I don't know if you've watched it on Nat Geo, but about what's called time dilation, where you get into this place where time slows down almost to a standstill and you just kind of step into this zone. And what I would say to you is that is available to you when you see how you're actually creating your reality. So when you see how you're creating it, when you see that you're creating it, time does slow down. Your thinking does slow down. More knowing becomes available. When you know what to do, you start to, we've all had situations like that where we just knew what to do. So notice how you know. For some people, it could be a certain feeling, a certain bodily sensation. Could be a voice, could be a sudden insight, this aha experience. And we've all had experiences where we knew what to do and we didn't do it, where we ignored it, where we say after the fact, oh, I should have known. I knew I should have done this. And how did you know? So beginning to collect this information about how did you know? Why did you ignore it? When do you ignore it? What do you take as stronger than your sense of knowing? And for a lot of people, it's around the intellect and data and rationalization and things that look safe. So how often does fear show up for you looking like facts disguised as practicality? Beginning to honor your knowing, especially in the realm of big decisions, is one of the most exciting and fulfilling things that you can do. So how do you go deeper? I think there's one key insight, and there's a bunch of implications of that insight that I don't have time to go into here. But that insight that begins to slow down the noise is that our experience of life, every human being's experience of life, is 100% internal 100% of the time. And a lot of what you take as real, as solid, is not only not solid, it's constantly changing because it's made up of your thinking, and your thinking is constantly changing. And you don't have to believe everything you think. And you'll begin, as you look in this direction, to notice the kind of fast, automatic, repetitive thinking that comprises probably, there's one study that says 80%. I'm guessing it's more like 90 or 95% of the thinking that you give in it, that you have, that you experience in a given day, is repetitive thoughts that you've thought the day before, that you'll think tomorrow, things that you think about other people, about politics, about yourself, about things that should or should not be. Why do I always have to, do that? Or why can't I? Or whatever. These ruts that we go down. You'll begin to see those for what they are, repetitive thoughts. They'll begin to loosen. And you will see behind that this thing that I call knowing, that is calm, that is present. It's patient. It's waiting for you. It knows. I'm betting as I say this right now, you have a knowing that you have noticed but haven't really acted on. That's what I'm talking about. And so being in an environment in which the very purpose is to look at that habitual thinking and call it on its game, that's really powerful. And so maybe you've seen it just as I've been talking about it. And maybe that seeing is permanent and irrevocable. That's what a lot of people call enlightenment, is seeing fundamentally how the world works. Seeing that you are not your identity, you're this much bigger thing. Seeing that life is happening within you that you're not happening within life. And when you see that, it changes things. But most people, I know this is true for me, get glimpses of it. And it's good to be around people who are in this conversation, whose purpose is being in this conversation because they recognize that different things show up for them when they're in the conversation. They see the world differently. They see the opportunities for themselves differently. And so a group of people looking in the same direction, supporting, inspiring each other, seeing this possibility of creating more than we ever could on our own, just from the sheer joy of creation, not because we feel like we have to or that something terrible will happen if we don't. That's incredibly powerful. And I'm putting together a group right now called You Unleashed to explore some of these big questions. You know, when you see you're enough, what do you really want? What have been the habitual ways that you have to keep yourself from creating that? Those things that showed up as fear or ways of keeping you small that aren't actually real. That if you saw them, you could see through them and then create this bigger thing. So, what if you stopped creating yourself as this small, finite human being and you saw more the being side of things than the human side? Still embracing the human, but recognizing that almost every limit that you see is one that you're making up and that doesn't actually have to be a limit. So this group is going to be based in, fueled by what I call my Creating Extraordinary Futures process. And so I go in more of this on the website, a little more detail. And if you watch my videos on YouTube, there's more available there. But the gist of it is first, we've really focused this call on this first point, seeing the truth of who you really are. But then after that, if you see that you're made up of thinking, well, what's the thinking that you're believing? And what if you stop believing it? So it's this recognition and then this dismantling or dissolution. And then it's like a reconstruction or a renovation project, right? Like, who is it that you're being called to be, and how do you create yourself and show up as that? You can see and install these more helpful beliefs, these more helpful perspectives about yourself and about the world, and operate from those. And then what do you desire when you don't need anything? What are you being called to create? There is this notion of a bigger calling. For me, it's to show people that they're free. For you, it might be something totally different. But it is this bigger purpose, it's this bigger mission. That's why you're here. And I'll tell you, I feel like when you see it's something that feels bigger than anything you could ever possibly do. But you're being used by life in this grander mission to create it, to point to it. In my case, to free as many people as possible. Because amazing things are going to happen and amazing things are going to be created when people see how free they are to create them. And so finally creating from this new sense of identity. It's incredibly powerful. And if you feel any inkling whatsoever about exploring this further, I would urge you to reach out to me. So you could go for the typical path, the VP looking for the SVP role, the person looking for the big promotion. I did it. I did it for decades. I can tell you that it never made me happy. It might have made me happy for, I don't know, a week or two, as I was like, it was more like being proud of myself for having the achievement. But what I found was that every promotion created additional responsibilities, created additional stresses. And instead of thinking, oh, I'm getting more and more free, which is what we really want, I was actually building a bigger and bigger prison for myself. And what I found when I saw this fact that I'm made of freedom and created from there is that I could take on more and more and never feel like imprisoned by it. It always felt fulfilling. Even when it felt big and impossible, it was like, oh, I'm doing what I'm here to do. And I suspect if you ask yourself, you have an inkling of what that is for you. And there's been a story around it that showed up around why you can't do it, why it's impractical, why you'd be letting people down if you tried, why it's selfish, all of those narratives, right? Again, the brain kicking in, showing us that staying small is the same as staying safe, that not changing is the same as staying safe. And we know it's not true. Darwin proved that it's not true. You have to adapt, or on some level you're going to die. And you can die, you can die in your office chair and just keep doing the same thing you've been doing and be just as dead as if you were physically dead. And I think you probably get that. So the reward of this exploration, this journey, this knowing that you're already free and therefore being open to all of these possibilities and being open to this thing that is wanting to be created through you. I've worked with people who actually decided, in the case that I'm thinking of, it was for a few months, but it can go longer than that their actual current job is their dream job. They saw things they didn't see as possibilities, both in themselves and in their job, because they saw the world differently. They were able to step back from the stresses of the job and realize, oh, if I change this, this, and this, I actually enjoy this. But it doesn't matter, because you're gonna create differently, whether it's your current job, whether it's a new job, whether it's a business you've been thinking about, whether it's your family, your relationships, whatever you're talking about, you're suddenly going to be able to create from ease and joy and fulfillment and purpose and meaning. It's amazing. And that's the potential reward of You Unleashed. That's what I'm pointing to. So You Unleashed is a conversation in possibility, an ongoing conversation in possibility. What if you finally set aside the time and space to look inward? If you've listened to this stream to this point, you know that's a possibility. You may not have known how to do it, but you've known it's a possibility. What if you became a part of a group that's looking in the same direction? What if you looked at what you really want, not just what you think you can have or what you think you should want or the next title or the 20% raise, but what's calling you and what has it cost you so far not to have done this? How many years have you avoided this thing that you know deep in your heart that you need to do? And what if you knew no matter what, you could not fail? And what I mean by that is no matter what you do, you are not going to fail. Failing is a human concept. Failing is a set of rules that we set up and judge against ourselves when we don't meet them. We're really good at that. But what's really happening is you're doing stuff and you're learning and you're trying something else and you're learning and you're trying something else. That's not failure. That's progress. So my commitment to you in this program, in this conversation, is that I will show you the door to greater possibility. I had someone early in my coaching career call me Morpheus, in the Matrix, how Morpheus is the person who shows people the truth of the Matrix, shows people the truth of who they are. And in a pretty pivotal moment in the movie, Morpheus says to Neo, I can show you the door, but you have to walk through it. And that's our partnership here. I'm going to keep showing you the door, and you are going to decide if and when and how to walk through it. I'm going to bring my full self to every interaction, to keep reminding you, to keep pushing you who you really are, what's really possible, seeing what you really want, not letting you forget what you really want when you see it, and you will see it. And I'll create an environment in which we can all hold ourselves accountable to greater possibility. I am all in on the group coaching environment. For the vast majority of the people, for the vast majority of the time, group coaching is the absolute best and fastest way to personal transformation. I will go all out, and I will do it in a spirit of play and fun, because some of our strongest insights are the ones where we finally learn to laugh at ourselves. I know that's been true for me. So your commitment, you're going to show up fully to every one of these conversations. You will not hide from the greater possibilities that are being presented to you. You will experiment with the tools and techniques and perspectives that I'm going to teach to you. You're going to support the others in the group. That, to me, is like, it's one thing to have a coach tell you you're great. You kind of hope, you kind of expect that. But when other people are looking at you and seeing this possibility that you're kind of afraid of, but other people see it, wow, that is powerful. And so it's not only about supporting the others in the group, but then when they see this thing in you, saying, yeah, I'm really willing to take a try at that. I'm willing to go for it. And so you will create the results that you commit to. Commitment is the name of the game in this program, and you don't necessarily know specifically what it is you're committing to at the beginning of this program. What you are committing to is a process of seeing that there is something more, an acknowledgement that even though you don't quite know what it is yet, there is more, and that you're going to go for it. And it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. You're going to play and have fun too. So your investment. So there's an investment of time here. It's 3 months. It's going to be a deep dive into yourself and how it creates in the world, how you can create that self differently. It's going to include 2 one-on-one coaching calls with me. So right now, just to give you an idea, that those calls would be roughly $5,000 if they were available a la carte. Weekly group coaching calls. This group in which you will live in possibility. Group support between calls. We'll have a place where we can hang out, have conversations, check things with each other, get support, make announcements. I'm creating a video curriculum around my Creating Extraordinary Futures process that I'm going to make available to you for life. And I've been on other programs personally where that was available, that kind of video curriculum. And what's amazing about that is you're going through it while you're going through the program, but then when the program stops, you get to go through it again. And what happens is you get to go through it at a little bit deeper level and a little bit deeper level. And the curriculum continues to give, it continues to fuel your transformation long after those initial 3 months are done. So to work one-on-one with me currently requires both a wait and an investment of $100,000. So I could only say this very recently that my one-on-one coaching practice is full. And so right now, you get you get the opportunity to work with me, and you get the opportunity to work with me for only $10,000. So I've designed this as a screaming deal, and I'm really excited about the possibilities. So I talked a little bit about why group work is best for most people. And so this program is designed to take advantage of all of those essential aspects of group work. So first of all, it's got a tested, focused curriculum. This is the culmination of 30 years of my own personal work. The bite-sized essences of what I've found is helpful and useful and works as you go deeper and deeper into this journey of yourself. It's going to be filled with people who are focused on looking in this same direction, this direction to the truth of our experience, the capital T truth of our experience, not dogma, but truth as an experience. And it's just a powerful container for possibility. So one of the really cool things that I've experienced both in groups that I've been in and groups I've led is that somehow magically every question ends up being relevant. So you might think of group coaching as, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to wait my turn and I'm going to ask my question, and like 5 minutes out of the hour is relevant to me. And no, all of it's relevant. A lot of times someone will be asking a question that you don't even know you have until you hear the answer. And so it's just one insight after another, after another. And so You Unleashed is designed to draw that out of everyone, to draw out that potential for greatness and support it. Now, I do want to say I've got a number of one-on-one clients, and typically they are CEOs, they're senior executives. There's some level of confidentiality that is required. There's some level of flexibility that is required. I mean, these are people who, I agree to meet with on a week by week basis, but half the time they're having to reschedule the call because they're on planes or they're in meetings. And yeah, one-on-one can accommodate that a lot better than a group can. But for the vast majority of people, the vast majority of the time, group is 100% the way to go. So if you've been listening to this and you're jazzed about it and you're wanting to talk more about it, I'm going to give you a link to my calendar on the next slide. But I also want to reward your willingness to commit. And so for the first 3 people that are willing to commit to this program, I'm going to give them a couple of really special bonuses. First of all, I'm going to give you 6 months of support instead of 3. So this is an opportunity, no matter where you are in your journey, to really know that, wow, I'm going to be able to spend the time here to get far down this path before I lose that group support. And of course, you're still going to have lifetime access to the curriculum. And you're going to get 3 one-on-one coaching calls with me instead of 2. So with 6 months of support, we're going to check in at the middle. We're going to check in at the 3-month mark and see how it's going and see what kind of adjustments we want to do going forward. Now, as of, I think, what does yesterday mean in this context? It's now a few days ago because I had to re-record this because of the live stream problems. But my one-on-one coaching practice is full. And so this is currently the only way to work with me. Now, there will be slots that show up on a one-on-one basis. Those slots will be expensive. And if you think that's best for you, let's have a conversation about that. But I'm going to tell you that most people, most of the time, I'm going to steer them toward the group coaching experience because it works. It works on so many levels. And so if you're interested, if you want to hear more, this is going to be an application process because I want to make sure that the people in this initial run, this is going to be a program that's going to go on for years. And we're just getting started. And I want to make sure that the first people in, fit both for themselves and each other, that they have an extraordinary experience. So I want you to book a 30-minute application interview to see with me, to see if you're a fit. And in that conversation, we're going to talk about what's possible for you. And I hope that you will get a sense, just in the conversation with me, of what you're going to see, what direction you're going to look, what's going to show up as the thing that, oh, yeah, I have felt this calling toward doing this, but I've never had any idea how to do it. That's what's going to become clear. And so there's the link. It's on Calendly. Jeff Munn, You Unleashed. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for watching this. Reach out to me anytime. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks.